The look on their faces was something I'll never forget. Two fake cops stuttering under the cool, unblinking stare of Amanda Blackwell, security commander at the nearby naval base, 30 years old, built from steel and storm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Gentlemen," she said, holding up her badge, "explain yourselves." They turned paler than paper. The HOA thought they could scare us over an oak tree. They were about to realize they'd picked the wrong battle and the wrong woman. After 15 years of constant relocations, Amanda and I wanted one thing: roots. I'd served 12 years as a Marine before moving into civilian life as a structural engineer. Amanda stayed in uniform, rising fast, now leading base security. Tactical, fearless, impossible to intimidate. When we found that colonial house tucked under a 100-year-old oak, it wasn't just a house. It was a dream. A promise of tire swings, fortresses built in branches, and a permanent backyard for our 10-year-old son, Tyler. The neighborhood gleamed. Manicured lawns, spotless sidewalks, mailboxes standing at military attention. We were so eager to claim a real home, we skimmed past the HOA agreement. Mistake number 1. 3 days after moving in, with moving boxes stacked like sandbags around the living room, the doorbell rang. Victoria Hamilton stood there. Tailored suit, perfect silver bob, a smile stretched too tight over sharpened teeth. "Welcome to Oak Ridge Estates," she said, handing over a glossy basket stuffed with local coupons and a laminated copy of the HOA rules. Her eyes scanned over Tyler's bike tipped on the lawn, the slightly ajar garage door, the tree's massive silhouette stretching across the backyard. She didn't miss anything. Neither did Amanda, watching quietly from behind me. Victoria spent 20 minutes outlining what good neighbors should do. Fence colors, grass height, mailbox uniformity, her voice as pleasant as poisoned honey. When she turned toward the oak tree, her words sharpened. "That tree is quite overwhelming. Our community prefers a more manicured look. Perhaps it should be removed." The quiet anger inside me, buried through years of military discipline, rose. "The oak stays," I said, steady as stone. For a split second, Victoria's mask slipped, revealing the icy disdain beneath. Then she smiled sweetly again. "We'll see," she murmured. As she walked away, Amanda crossed her arms, eyes narrowing the way they did when she caught sailors trying to lie their way out of inspections. "We have a problem," she said simply. "She's not enforcing standards. She's asserting power." The first formal notice arrived 2 weeks later. Violation. Lawn length exceeding acceptable height by a quarter inch. Fine. $50. The second. Garbage bins left visible for 4 minutes past pickup time. The third. Tyler's basketball hoop. Unsightly from the road. It wasn't about regulations. It was about control. Amanda didn't yell, didn't panic. She calmly pulled out a battered leather notebook and set it on the kitchen table. "What's that?" I asked. "Our operations manual," she said without missing a beat. "First rule of survival. Know your battlefield. Tomorrow," she said, "we'd read every word of that HOA covenant. Tomorrow, we'd learn the terrain." Victoria had started a war. She had no idea who she was fighting. Walter Brooks, the HOA enforcer in all but name, drove by our house like clockwork. Same black SUV, same slow crawl past the curb, the same telephoto lens snapping pictures. Every time he passed, it set Tyler on edge. "Can I play in the backyard instead?" he asked one afternoon, his voice small. "The man in the black car scares me." That was the moment Amanda knew we were being watched. Not monitored, not managed, but watched. Nancy Sullivan, the HOA secretary, showed up a few days later with another violation slip. She hesitated before handing it over, glancing over her shoulder like she was afraid of being seen talking to us. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It wasn't this bad. Not even with the Parkers." Before I could press her, she turned and hurried away, leaving us with more questions than answers. That night, Amanda got to work. Out came the high-grade security cameras, the kind only someone with military clearance could easily access. By midnight, our house was wrapped in silent, watchful eyes of our own. "We document everything," Amanda said as she installed the last camera over the driveway. "Every visit, every violation, every lie. We need evidence." The next HOA meeting turned from awkward to hostile in under 10 minutes. Held at the community clubhouse, it looked more like a courtroom than a neighborhood gathering. Victoria Hamilton presided at the front table, flanked by Walter and the board, all sitting a little too high above the crowd. When the floor opened for homeowner complaints, I stood and calmly read through our grievances, citing specific contradictions between the HOA's citations and actual city ordinances. I barely finished my sentence before Victoria pounced. "The Blackwells have installed unauthorized plantings," she announced, as Walter clicked through slides showing Amanda's marigold flowers. Daniel Foster, the law professor, stood immediately. "Point of order," he said, voice sharp. "Annual flowers have never required prior approval. That's not a structural change." A soft murmur of agreement stirred the crowd. Victoria's smile barely wavered. "The board has reinterpreted that section," she said. "The fines stand. $500, plus 50 per day until removal." A quick vote. 6-1 in favor of the fine. Only Daniel dissenting. As we left, the weight of isolation settled hard. A few neighbors offered apologetic smiles, but no one dared say more. Later that night, we reviewed the security footage. Walter's SUV showed up at 2 a.m., parked across the street, headlights off, engine idling. Other nights, Victoria herself sat beside him, pointing toward our backyard. Amanda narrowed her eyes. "This isn't HOA monitoring. This is surveillance." For 2 weeks, we gathered footage like covert operatives, late-night drive-bys, whispered meetings, trespassing onto private property. In one clip, they even entered our backyard at 1:30 a.m., taking measurements around the oak tree. Amanda gritted her teeth. "Let them think we're blind," she said. "The element of surprise is our greatest weapon." Daniel's legal advice kept coming quietly, helping us document violations properly, citing real laws, preparing our counterattack. One night over coffee, he leaned closer. "You're not the first," he said. "Talk to Melissa Parker." Melissa lived across the highway now, a woman worn thin by battles she hadn't chosen. At first reluctant, she opened up when we mentioned the oak tree. "They made us tear ours down," she said bitterly. "Cited bogus height restrictions, then jacked up the fines so high we couldn't breathe. After they sold and left," she told us, "the HOA rezoned the area, cut down the trees, and made way for commercial development." Victoria, it turned out, had been paid handsomely as a consultant to help make it happen. Amanda's research confirmed the worst. Victoria wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was selling it, piece by piece. And now, our oak tree stood in her way. The truth about Walter Brooks hit harder than we expected. He hadn't just retired from the force. He'd been forced out under a cloud of falsified evidence and departmental shame. Walter wasn't a man who bent rules. He broke them. The next afternoon, while Amanda was on duty, I spotted Walter parked down the block, openly watching our house through binoculars. No attempt to hide it now. Deciding it was time to push back, I walked straight toward his SUV. "Finding any violations today, Walter?" I asked casually. He fumbled the binoculars, cheeks reddening before snapping into a scowl. "Just doing my job, Blackwell. Someone's got to keep standards high." He revved the engine, but not before muttering, "You military types think you're above the rules. Victoria's not going to let you drag down this neighborhood. You should start packing." That night, Amanda returned from base looking rattled. Once Tyler was asleep, she laid her phone on the table. "I found something," she whispered. She pressed play. Victoria's icy voice filled the kitchen. "Matthews says the zoning commission meets next month. We need those properties cleared, especially the Blackwells. That oak has to go one way or another." Walter's gruff reply followed. "The legal route's too slow. Brooks thinks he can find another way to speed things up if needed." Victoria laughed. A chilling, merciless sound. "Do what you need to do. Just make sure it can't be traced back to us. I've worked too hard to let some military family with their precious tree ruin everything." The recording ended. Amanda and I sat in stunned silence, the weight of their words pressing down on us. This wasn't just about HOA violations anymore. It was conspiracy, calculated, deliberate, criminal. The next morning, a certified letter arrived. An emergency HOA meeting called for Thursday night. Agenda: legal action against the Blackwell family, and possible eviction. "They're moving fast," Daniel said grimly when we called him. "They want to crush you before you expose them." We had 3 days. 3 days to marshal everything we'd gathered into a case strong enough to break Victoria's iron grip. Amanda, calm as ever, spread documents across the dining room table. "Time to organize our firepower," she said. They brought a ruler to a gunfight. Victoria, meanwhile, had lawyered up, hiring Ryan Harrison, a pit bull attorney with a reputation for bulldozing homeowners out of their properties. But Amanda had done her homework. She'd studied Harrison's past cases, highlighting every overreach, every lost appeal, every procedural misstep. By Thursday night, the community clubhouse was packed. more neighbors than usual, buzzing with curiosity and unease. Victoria and her board sat elevated at the front like royalty surveying their subjects. Harrison sat beside them, the picture of corporate confidence. Victoria wasted no time. "This emergency session concerns the Blackwell family's repeated violations," she said, voice sharp. Harrison stood, distributing thick packets to the board. He projected images onto the wall, photos taken at odd angles, making our lawn look untamed, our tree like a ticking time bomb. "The Blackwells have repeatedly endangered community safety," Harrison announced. "The association demands immediate removal of the hazardous oak tree." When it was finally our turn, I stood calmly. "I appreciate the opportunity to respond," I began. "And I have just one question. Where did you find an arborist from a company that shut down 18 months ago?" Gasps rippled across the room as I displayed the official dissolution notice. The so-called expert report was a fraud. Amanda stepped forward, distributing fresh packets. "And regarding the oak tree," she said, voice steady, "the original covenant protects heritage oaks as community assets, superseding any later amendments. One by one we dismantled every accusation, photos contradicting their false claims, county laws overriding HOA fines, financial ties linking Victoria directly to Pinnacle development. The room, once indifferent, was now electric, the tide turning with every word. Victoria's smile had vanished, and for the first time since we moved into Oak Ridge Estates, we weren't isolated. We were leading. The financial records didn't just hint at corruption, they screamed it. Payments funneled from Pinnacle Development straight into Victoria's consulting fees, hidden inside HOA budgets. Victoria's composure cracked like thin ice. "This is absurd," she snapped, voice rising. "These military people are fabricating conspiracies because they can't follow simple rules." She looked desperately toward Harrison, but he was frantically flipping through our evidence, clearly blindsided. The judge, who Harrison had probably counted on to rubber stamp their eviction plan, leaned forward, her face grave. "These are serious accusations on both sides," she said. "I'm granting a 2-week continuance for document verification." Then she fixed Harrison with a hard stare. "And I expect full credential confirmation on that arborist." Around us, homeowners buzzed in low, shocked conversations. The tide was shifting, and Victoria knew it. As the crowd thinned out, I watched Walter corner Victoria near the exit. Their frantic whispers carried across the room. "This is getting out of control," Walter hissed. "They've got too much. We need to move to Plan B before they dig up the zoning documents." Victoria's reply froze my blood. "Take care of it tomorrow," she snapped. "I don't care how. Just make sure they understand. They're not welcome here anymore." There wasn't annoyance on their faces anymore. There was fear. And fear makes people reckless. Daniel caught up to us as we headed for the car, his expression tight. "You rattled them," he said grimly. "And desperate people are dangerous." Amanda gave a short nod, her body tense, scanning the dark parking lot like she was back on patrol. "We know," she said. "The cameras are rolling. Motion sensors are active. They won't catch us sleeping." But even Amanda couldn't predict how fast, or how dirty, Victoria would strike. 2 days later, I had to leave town for an engineering conference. I almost canceled, but Amanda insisted. "We don't stop living because of bullies," she said firmly. "I can handle anything they throw." She was right. But neither of us expected their next move. That night, around 8:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. Tyler was already asleep upstairs. Amanda checked the camera feed. 2 men in police uniforms stood outside. At first glance, everything looked official, but Amanda's trained eyes caught the inconsistencies immediately. Off-center badges, sloppy posture, rushed behavior. "Ma'am, Officer Miller and Officer Daniels," the taller one announced through the still-chained door. "We're here for an eviction inspection." They flashed badges, too fast, too sloppy, and shoved a document under the chain. Amanda asked politely to examine it closer. The paper was riddled with flaws, a misspelled jurisdiction, a fake county seal. Stalling smoothly, Amanda texted Officer Tiffany Wells, a real deputy she trusted. "And your badge numbers again?" she asked sweetly. The fake cops shifted nervously. "Ma'am, refusal to comply is a serious offense," one barked, moving his hand toward his belt. That was enough. Amanda calmly pulled out her military ID. "Gentlemen," she said, voice cutting through the tension, "I am Lieutenant Commander Amanda Blackwell, Naval Security. You're impersonating law enforcement. A federal crime. My colleague from the Sheriff's Department is en route. Care to explain yourselves? The transformation was instant. The bravado drained from their faces. Scott, the smaller one, broke first. "We were just hired," he blurted. "Walter said you'd back down if fake cops showed up with eviction papers. We weren't supposed to do anything." Brendan tried to hold his ground, but his partner's confession crumbled any defense they had left. Amanda coolly raised her phone, revealing she'd recorded everything. "You have 30 seconds to explain," she said, "before I place you under citizen's arrest." The screech of sirens ended the charade. Real deputies cuffed the fake officers. On body cam footage later, I watched the exact moment Scott broke down in the patrol car, admitting they were ex-security guards Walter had hired. Walter thought Amanda would be easy to scare. They never understood. Amanda wasn't just a military wife. She was the warrior they should have feared most. By morning, the neighborhood feud had evolved into something far bigger. This was no longer about HOA citations. This was about criminal charges, conspiracy, impersonation of law enforcement, intimidation, and fraud. Amanda's voice over the phone haunted me as I drove home. "They crossed the line, Ethan. It's time to counterattack." When I stepped inside, the house looked less like a family home and more like a forward operating base. Maps, timelines, affidavits, our dining table buried under the paperwork of war. Amanda, still in her naval uniform, coordinated with Officer Tiffany Wells and Daniel Foster like a seasoned battlefield commander. "Brendan and Scott broke," Tiffany said grimly as I set down my bag. "They signed statements confirming Walter hired them. Fake cops, fake paperwork, all of it. A search warrant executed at Walter's home uncovered even more. Templates for fake court orders, surveillance notes on our routines, diagrams of our security system. This isn't just HOA harassment anymore," Tiffany said. "This is a felony case." Amanda had already pulled her military connections. The Naval Criminal Investigative Service was now involved, investigating possible compromise of military security. "They didn't just pick the wrong family," Amanda said coldly. "They created a national security incident." Meanwhile, Daniel dropped a bombshell. "I've been documenting Victoria's HOA violations for years," he said, spreading out thick, detailed files. "Selective enforcement, financial irregularities, abuse of power. I kept everything. I just never had backup to take her down. Now, he did. And we weren't alone." Nancy Sullivan, the timid HOA secretary, came forward with internal documents. Records showing Victoria authorized secret security payments to Walter without board approval. Neighbors who had been silent for years found their courage too. One by one, they shared stories of intimidation, selective fines, and retaliatory harassment. But the biggest weapon we gained came from outside. Mark Reynolds, a sharp investigative journalist, had been quietly tracking Pinnacle Development Group for months. Our case was the missing link. "They used HOA pressure to force homeowners out," Mark explained. "Undervalue properties, buy them cheap, clear the way for new developments." Victoria wasn't just a power-hungry president. She was a key player in a regional corruption scheme. Walter had disappeared from view, but Victoria wasn't retreating. 3 days after the fake police incident, every homeowner received an urgent notice. An emergency HOA meeting. Agenda. Final action against the Blackwells. Her last desperate play to rally the community before the criminal investigation exploded into public knowledge. But Amanda had anticipated it. Officer Wells would attend, in full uniform. Mark Reynolds would be there, recording everything. And sitting quietly among the crowd would be FBI agent Mitchell, eyes sharp, listening. The night before the meeting, Amanda and I sat beneath the old oak tree, the heart of everything we were fighting for. "Any regrets?" I asked her. She smiled faintly. "In the military, we learn the hardest battles are for the things that matter most. This house, this tree, our future, they're worth every fight." Her hand found mine. Victoria picked the wrong enemies. Just before midnight, Tiffany called with urgent news. "Victoria filed a legitimate court order today," she warned. "Same fraudulent arborist report. Different judge." It was brilliant in its desperation. If the court order stood, Victoria could claim the fake cops were a misunderstanding, not a crime. Amanda spent the next hour with Daniel, plotting a counterstrike. The emergency meeting wasn't just about fines anymore. It had become a battle for the truth itself, before Victoria could spin her web of lies. The clubhouse was packed to the walls the next night. Victoria sat at the center of her loyalists, Ryan Harrison at her side, smug and ready. Walter's chair sat empty, conspicuous by its silence. Victoria opened the meeting with a smooth, calculated voice. "We're here to address the Blackwell family's refusal to comply with community standards," she said. Ryan Harrison rose, distributing packets, flashing the new court order like a weapon. But Victoria didn't know. This time, the entire war was about to turn against her. Ryan Harrison stood proudly beside Victoria, projecting a final weapon onto the wall. A freshly stamped court order. "The county judge has reviewed the evidence and found sufficient merit in the safety concerns," he announced. "Any attempt to obstruct this legal order," he added, flashing a pointed look at us, "may result in contempt charges." Victoria's smile sharpened into a thin blade. "There have been unfortunate misunderstandings," she said sweetly. "But rest assured, every action taken has been legal and in the community's best interest." She moved swiftly. "I motioned to allocate funds to enforce the court order and cover legal expenses." It was the moment we'd prepared for. I rose calmly, Amanda steady beside me. "Before any vote," I said, my voice clear, "the homeowners deserve the full truth." The room stilled. "This wasn't a misunderstanding," I continued. "This was criminal impersonation of law enforcement, orchestrated by Walter Brooks, under Victoria's orders." Shocked murmurs rippled across the room. At that moment, Officer Tiffany Wells stepped forward, crisp in her uniform. "I'm Officer Wells from the County Sheriff's Department," she announced. "Two individuals were arrested for impersonating deputies and delivering fraudulent documents. Both identified Walter Brooks as the person who hired them." Victoria's face turned ghostly pale. She stumbled for control. "Poor judgment, perhaps," she said quickly. "But implying board involvement is absurd. We now have a legitimate court order that proves our concerns were justified." Amanda stepped forward, naval insignia gleaming on her lapel. "And that court order," she said, voice razor-sharp, "was obtained using a fraudulent arborist report." She projected two documents side by side, the old forged report and the court filing Victoria submitted. "Martin Consulting," Amanda continued, "ceased operations 18 months ago. There has been no legitimate inspection of our tree." With clinical precision, Amanda and I revealed the full web: Victoria's financial ties to Pinnacle Development, the harassment pattern against homeowners, the misused HOA funds financing it all. Mark Reynolds, notebook in hand, confirmed an exposé hitting the papers the next morning. Documents, witness statements, and all. The mood in the room shifted. Anger replaced fear. One by one, neighbors spoke up. Stories of intimidation, silence bought with fear. Nancy Sullivan, hands trembling but voice steady, stepped forward. "I falsified meeting minutes under Victoria's orders," she confessed. "I was scared. I'm not scared anymore." Victoria's polished mask shattered. She launched into a furious tirade about military families, conspiracy theories, and troublemakers. It backfired. Councilman Matthews, slinking at the back, tried to distance himself. "I assure you," he said nervously, "my dealings with Pinnacle were above board." FBI agent Mitchell calmly approached him. "Councilman," he said with a polite nod, "we'll continue this conversation downtown." The color drained from Matthews's face. The final blow came when Eleanor Turner, flanked by longtime residents, presented the original HOA documents protecting the Heritage Oaks. "Victoria knew," Eleanor said simply, "and she chose to ignore it." Panic sparked in Victoria's eyes. "I'm adjourning this meeting," she barked, gathering her papers. But Daniel Foster stood, voice steady. "Point of order," he said. "I motion for immediate removal of President Hamilton." Homeowners roared their approval. The vote wasn't close. 38-3. Victoria out. As Officer Wells led Victoria from the room, the community erupted into applause. Within weeks, Daniel was interim president. A full audit underway. Our oak tree was officially protected. The Pinnacle development stalled indefinitely. Victoria and Walter faced multiple criminal charges. A month later, under the sprawling oak, we hosted a neighborhood barbecue, the real kind of community Victoria had tried to crush. Tyler, grinning wide, led a nature club of kids beneath the oak's mighty branches. As Amanda leaned into me, laughter and music filling the air, I whispered, "Maybe we should thank Victoria." Amanda laughed. "Even a battle can build a better future," she said. The light strung across the yard glowed softly, and our 100-year-old oak stood tall, the true victor in the end.